Regular meeting number 15 will come to order. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem. Councilmember Dealcar, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our faith leader this evening got stuck in traffic and was not able to make it. Mr. Imam Sheikh Bashir Muhammad was supposed to be with us this evening and is still en route, but I want to acknowledge him. But in his absence, still ask that we take a moment of silence, reflect on the work that we have to do this evening, but also how we support each other as a community. Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Faber, Green, Remy White, President Harden. Any person who takes any actions to obstruct or interfere with the conduct of tonight's meeting may be charged with disturbing a lawful meeting pursuant to Columbus City Code 2317.12. Any person who enters those areas of city council chambers reserved for city officials or invited guests may be charged with criminal trespass pursuant to Columbus City Code 2311.21.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Faber, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Thank you. Are there any additions or corrections to the journal? Hearing none, the journal is approved. This week's communication received by the city clerk's office are listed on the agenda and will be published in the city bulletin. Are there any other communications to be read into the record?
Not this time.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll go around the dais for any announcements or resolutions by members of council, starting with Councilmember Bangston.
Thank you, President Harden. First announcement I have tonight is that on April 10th, my office, in partnership with the Department of Development, will host a public hearing to discuss a newly proposed designated outdoor refreshment area, otherwise known as a DORA, for downtown. This will be called the Center City DORA and includes parts of downtown as well as Franklinton. The hearing will start at 5 p.m. and will take place at Land Grant Brewing Company located at 424 West Town Street in Franklinton. Any resident wishing to provide testimony about the proposal during the hearing should email JP Dorval at jpdorval, D-O-R-V-A-L, at columbus.gov in my office by noon on the day of the hearing. Second, the application for this year's Accelerate Columbus program is still open. Slots are filling up very quickly. So if you know any small businesses or entrepreneurs that are looking for any types of services around capacity building or help with their business, please have them check that out. The application can be found on the city's Small Biz Hub at cbussmallbizhub.com. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Barosa de Padilla.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, everyone, and happy Women's History Month. Women's Equal Pay Day symbolizes how far into the year women must work to earn what men earned in the previous year, highlighting the persistent gender wage gap. This year, Women's Equal Pay Day happened last week on March 12th. It serves as a reminder of the ongoing disparities in pay and the need for continued efforts to achieve pay equity. Throughout the year, we will highlight the Equal Pay Day of women of different racial backgrounds that highlights the further disparities women of color face when it comes to pay. Additionally, the Women's Caucus of the Columbus City Council will be leaning into Women's History Month with a week-long celebration of events throughout the last week of March, hosted by each member of the Women's Caucus. So as we go around, different caucus members will share their events. It's going to be a little out of order in terms of date, but it'll be easy to find online. So I would like to invite you to the event that we will be hosting on Thursday, March 28th. Our event is titled A Woman's Work, Building Our Future Today, from 6 to 8 p.m. at Strong Water Food and Spirits in Franklinton. This special evening will be hosted by Sierra Johnson, news anchor and reporter for NBC4, and will highlight this council's work to advance women. We'll hear brief presentations from our partners at Bloom 614, who will share information about the Maud Hill Growing Home Ownership Fund, which provides Black and Brown families or first-time homeowners with up to $15,000 towards their down payment assistance. And the Columbus Financial Empowerment Center will share information about their free financial services. Additionally, we will have a panel of entrepreneurs, activists, and artists sharing their journey as women leaders. The panel will feature Heidi Howes, co-founder and co-director of Motherful, Max, founder of Max Model Management, Erin Hathaway, executive director and co-founder of ICE Mentors and Erin Pink Girl Empowerment, and Stephanie Galloway, owner at Stephanie Galloway Real Estate. The event is free and open to the public. The link to register is located on my social media channels and by doing a quick search on Eventbrite. While it's not necessary to register, it is highly encouraged. I hope that folks come out, and we're excited to share all the good work that we've been doing to help advance women in the city of Columbus. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember De Alcar.
Thank you, President Harden. As my colleague, Councilmember Barosa de Padilla mentioned, I too am excited to be hosting a Women's History Month event next week, along with my fellow Women's Caucus members. On Tuesday, March 26th, from 5 to 7 p.m. at the North Bank Pavilion, I will be hosting a network event entitled Game Changers Women's Sports in Columbus. During the event, members of the women's sports community, as well as interested residents, will enjoy some light refreshments as we discuss the state of women's sports in our city, which, quite frankly, the state is pretty fantastic. The event will be highlighted by some esteemed guest speakers who will deliver remarks on their experience as women athletes and how we can continue ensuring equal access to sports for all members of our community. We're grateful to be joined by local sports icon Stephanie Hightower. Many of you know her from the Columbus Urban League and also USA Track and Field, where she was a president. We'll also have OSU Women's Basketball Associate Coach Carla Morrow and Audrey Flau, Community Ambassador for our new and exciting Columbus Fury Pro Volleyball team. The event is free to the public. You do not need to RSVP. It's going to be a fun evening of engaging conversation, and I hope to see many of our residents there. That's all for me, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember. President Pro Tem. Thank you. Councilmember Favor.
Thank you, Council President Harden. Next Wednesday, March 27th, in the spirit of celebrating the last week of Women's History Month, I have the honor of hosting a fireside chat with Fimergy titled Mellowing Mentally, to discuss how media impacts our young girls' mental health and ways to address the negative impacts it might have. This event will take place at 3:30 p.m. at 49 South Grant Avenue. Once again, these events that are being hosted next week are an amazing way to network with individuals across the community and join in conversations that seek to empower and advance women across the city. I sincerely hope that you all join us next week as we continue celebrating Women's History Month. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Green.
Yes. Before I share information about our event, I do have one resolution on the agenda tonight that I would like to share first. And before I do that, if I could invite Katie White, Stephanie Starks, Tracy Lewis, and David Jenkins up to the podium as I introduce Resolution 0085X-2024 to celebrate March as National Social Work Month and to recognize the critical contributions of social workers in the fight to achieve equity. As a very proud licensed social worker, it it is my greatest honor to be able to lift up and recognize the invaluable work being done by our social workers across our community here in Columbus and beyond. This year's National Social Work Month theme is Empowering Social Workers, Inspiring Action and Leading Change. And it serves as a call to action to help enhance, revitalize, and stabilize our workforce. Our human service sector is facing critical workforce shortages, and our nation needs social workers now more than ever. Homelessness is on the rise. The aftermath of the opiate crisis has impacted everyone across our community at every economic level of every background. Social workers are the frontline workers that are uniquely qualified to navigate these societal issues from a helping lens, and you can find us everywhere, in schools, libraries, veteran centers, social service agencies, and even in government. We are one of the highest educated, most heavily trained workforces in the entire United States, and yet we are one of the lowest paid. And as the needs of our community continue to grow, and they are, verifiable data, state, national level, demonstrates that, so does the need for our workforce to continue to grow, which means that we need to make meaningful investments in those workforce issues today so that we can retain and train the workforce that we need right now, as well as so we can incentivize people to enter into our workforce pipeline to be able to address the needs tomorrow. And as our city grows, so are the needs going to continue to grow. And so I want to thank everyone here. For the people who are here that are social workers that are here, can you also stand up so that we can recognize you and thank you for your service? Thank you so much. Today, Empowering Social Workers, Inspiring Action and Leading Change, we are so grateful to recognize you and elevate you today. And I would like to just turn it over to you to say a few remarks, and then I will come down and present this resolution to you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Green. Thank you for having us, Council President Hardin and fellow council members. My name is Katie White, and I'm the administrator of the Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging. As Councilmember Green mentioned, I'm joined this evening with a large group of social workers from across Central Ohio from many different city departments, and we are thrilled to have the resolution to celebrate National Social Worker Month. I'm joined by my esteemed colleagues this evening that are going to share a few remarks as we celebrate together. So first we'll have Stephanie Starks, Director of NASW Region 5. Then we'll have Tracy Lewis, President of the Columbus Association of Black Social Workers. And then we'll have Dean David Jenkins from Ohio State University College of Social Work. Thank you so much for having us, and thank you to social workers for all that you do.
Good evening. Thank you, first of all, to City Council for everything that you do to support the social work profession. Special shout out to Councilperson Melissa Green. Happy Social Work Month to you. My name is Stephanie Starks. I am the Region 5 Director for NASW Ohio, and I am also the CEO and Clinical Director for Starks Counseling and Consultation Services. I am proud to be practicing in Ohio, where we have 28,000 licensed social workers. These social work practice areas are diverse and happen in settings like child welfare, hospitals, schools, prisons, large mental health agencies, and small private practices like mine, as well as in various macro settings. As a representative of NASW, we represent the interests of social workers and are fighting to make it better for us, as well as our clients, through increased insurance reimbursement rates, paid internships, educational debt relief, and stopping policy efforts that hurt us and our clients. Now, to my fellow social workers who are in the audience, we all do so much, but if you are looking for a way to become more involved and to help tap into resources and relationships in our fields, please be encouraged and consider joining NASW Ohio if you have not already done so. There are so many opportunities to support ourselves and the clients that we serve. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. My name is Tracy Lewis, and I am president of the Columbus chapter of the Association of Black Social Workers. And as you know, social workers play a crucial role in the well-being of individuals, families, and the community, and are often the unsung heroes working tirelessly to make a positive impact on the lives of those in need. The Columbus Association of Black Social Workers is a prime example of a group of social workers who are dedicated to making a difference in our community. Founded in 1971, CABSW is a chapter of the National Association of Black Social Workers. The organization is comprised of social workers and other human service professionals who are committed to the mission of promoting social and economic justice for African Americans and other oppressed populations. Our work is grounded in the principles of self-determination, empowerment, and cultural competence. The impact of CABSW can be seen in the lives of the individuals and families we have served over the years. Our efforts have helped to improve the mental health of countless individuals, provide resources and support for families in need, and empower youth to reach their goals and dreams. We have also been instrumental in shaping policies and programs that promote social justice and equality for the African American community. In conclusion, the Columbus Association of Black Social Workers is a shining example of the impact that social workers can have on the lives of individuals, families, and communities. Our dedication to promoting social and economic justice for the African American community has made a significant difference in the lives of many. As we continue to face challenges and strive for a more equitable society, the work of organizations like CABSW is more important than ever. We are true agents of change, and our efforts are a testament to our powers of social work in transforming lives. Thank you very much. Happy Social Workers Month to all the social workers in the room.
Good evening, Council President Hardin, President Pro Tem Dorans, and members of the City Council. My name is David Jenkins. I'm Dean of the College of Social Work at The Ohio State University. I'm honored to be here to celebrate National Social Work Month on behalf of our over 14,000 graduates and our current 1,200 students in the program at Ohio State. I'm grateful to live in a city now for almost 2 years that values our profession and partners with us in so many incredible ways that help the residents of Columbus. From our work together for immigrants and refugees and your consistent support of our centers and institutes like Age Friendly and Life Sports, we are deeply grateful, and we look forward to continuing and growing our partnership with many of you in transformative ways. We're also very excited to have Melissa Green, a licensed social worker on the council, and to support her work as chair of the Health and Human Services and Equity Committee and vice chair of Housing, Homelessness, and Building. These are areas social workers are deeply passionate about. Thank you for this invitation and opportunity to celebrate our profession of social work. As the flagship university and as the land-grant University of Ohio, our mission is to care for the community and to work hard to better our society. I'm thrilled social work is such an important partner with you in this important work. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the work that you do every day and for being here so that we can recognize that and share that with everyone else. Did any of my colleagues have any comments or questions they wanted to make? Seeing none, I move for adoption.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Hardin.
Adopted.
Okay, and then last but not least, we also did want to then share one final thing, just an announcement about our Women's History Month / Social Work Month that we will be hosting on Friday, March 29th at Goodland in Franklinton. This is just a casual mixer to celebrate one another, to network with each other, to build community so that then we can go out and be able to do the hard work of advocacy together. And so we we welcome you to join us. It is also free and open to all. I don't think there's an RSVP, is there, Haley? No. So just come as you are and, spend time with one another and in community, and then we can get back to work on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Remy.
Thank you very much, Council President Harden. I just want to remind everyone that on Saturday, April 6th, is our Cleaner Columbus citywide cleanup at 9 a.m. at Goodale Shelter House. You can register for the event. We hope to see you out there, whether you're an organization, individuals, neighborhoods, civic associations. We'd like to see you out there. Please go to cleanercolumbus.org to sign up. Again, that's cleanercolumbus.org, and that is all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember White.
Thank you, President Harden. Good evening, everyone. I am excited to announce that the Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee will be holding our first hearing of the year on Tuesday, March 26th at 5 p.m. Sadly, there's no drinks at our events, but it'll still be an educational experience. The hearing will cover net metering, how the policy change will help our city meet our climate action plan goals, and upcoming Earth Month activities. If you would like to testify, you have up until noon of the hearing date to email my legislative analyst, Emiliana Morales, at EMMORALES@columbus.gov. Hope to see you all there. And that is all for me.
Thank you, Councilmember. And my only announcement, well, two announcements. One, shout out to the Lady Nubians who won their 9th straight state championship in girls basketball. As a Nubian myself, I went to Columbus Afrocentric. I'm very proud of their program. They keep excelling, keep just having an amazing program, and these young women are the best. And we are working. I actually haven't told my team. We should be working to bring them down to celebrate them soon, to recognize them for their work. The only other announcement is just as exciting. It is that tomorrow is Election Day. So please go out and make sure that your voices are heard. Polls are open from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. You can go to the Franklin County Board of Elections website to check your polling location. And if you have not returned your by mail application, absentee ballot in, you can turn it into the Board of Elections by 7:30 p.m. tomorrow. So please make sure you get out to vote tomorrow. Are there any other announcements from my colleagues from the City Attorney's Office? I see the auditor has an announcement. It is tax season.
Everyone's attention, yes. Thank you, Council President. I'm Megan Kilgore, the City Auditor, and we indeed are about 30 days out from Tax Day, which for most folks is April 15th. As I think many members of Council know, we've undergone a lot of modernization in the last few years, but we have a saying in the office that people don't want to go through a lot of steps to order a pizza, something delicious, let alone file their taxes. So we've tried to take some steps to really simplify the process. And so as you're talking to individuals in the community, there are three very easy ways. The first way is through columbus.gov. We have an online portal that folks could go to, and you don't have to open an account, but you can. And I encourage you to do so, because if you open an account, it'll store your tax information from prior years. You'll be able to access it, and you'll be able to interact with our office electronically. The second way is you can still mail it in, and a very simple way. And we have a new way, which is called the IRS Modern e-File. And some of you who might use a tax prep software today, you're already experiencing that when after you file your federal forms, it says, hey, do you want to file your state forms as well? We're embedding our tax forms into some of that tax prep software. And so it's a new but super easy way for additional residents and taxpayers to go in, and it does a lot of the work for you and pre-populates things. But as a reminder, from a kind of a user experience, customer service standpoint, we do have a few features. Anyone can set up an appointment with anyone on our tax prep team. Just schedule a one-on-one appointment. You can also use our translation services. We have a helpline if you have a question as you're actually doing your taxes. But if it's after hours, it's 11 o'clock at night, we also have an AI-powered chatbot who is kind of preset for a lot of frequently asked questions. So trying to meet people where they are, but everything's online. That should be your one-stop shop. Thank you.
Anything from the treasurer's office? We're good? All right, at this time, I request the following ordinance to be removed from the consent action portion of the agenda. Ordinance 0666-2024 from the Education and Labor Committee. Are there any other requests by members of council for removal of an ordinance or resolution from the consent portion of the agenda? Hearing none, may we now have a motion to waive reading of titles of third-day legislation by the clerk? Do we have a motion? Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Thank you. Will the clerk now read the record ordinance numbers of 30-day legislation on tonight's agenda for first reading?
Finance and Governance Committee, ordinances 462, 547, 585-2024. Economic Development and Small and Minority Business Committee, ordinance 725-2024. Public Service and Transportation Committee, ordinances 592, 593, and 750-2024. Neighborhoods, Recreation, and Parks Committee, ordinances 413, 495, 496, 497, 559, 560, 601, and 613-2024. Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, ordinances 658, 700, 730, 735, 736-2024. Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, ordinance 758-2024. Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, ordinances 230, 470, 511, 523, 524, 527, 538, 544, 545, 571, 577, 611, 652, 676, and 699-2024. Rules and Policy Committee, ordinance 675-2024. Zoning Committee, ordinances 769 and 771-2024.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We have one speaker on the first reading portion of the agenda. That's Mr. Nathaniel Wilkins. Mr. Wilkins, welcome back to council.
Nathaniel George Wilkins, 1612 Arlington Avenue, a North Atlanta resident for 15 and a half years. I'm going to be speaking in against 0700-2024, beginning with the property located at 2969 East 12th Avenue. I believe, to my knowledge, a couple years ago, I believe this property stood for state of forfeiture for Ohio. I believe this was the house, and I don't believe why the sucker should have been torn down. Here we are again, taking these land bank properties or putting them over to Habitat Humanity. This particular address, I do believe it's in South Linden area. Today, it still sits as a vacant land. Many times I had asked you again, why does the house got to sit like this where we can renovate this for low-income people? And that's not being done in the state of Ohio to this day. This is the problem what we have in the state of Ohio now is flexible rent, high-density rent for houses and apartment complexes. If a vacant house sit through the city land bank for quite some time, why don't we take 175% tax abatement to renovate the house and bring in young kids or young teenagers getting out of trouble, getting them out of life of crime? I don't understand why that every vacant house in the state of Ohio has got to come down. Why it cannot be renovated. These are the questions that I had asked my wife today, is because we still have these properties that still idolize vacant through the land bank. There's something's going to have to be done, changing the Cudahy land bank to something else, or the city land utilization plan, what that means. You know, we have to come up with some other ideas. And if we can't do that, what is the opportunity to not renovate these houses to bring jobs in these opportunities, neighborhoods, these poor communities? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkins, for your advocacy for more home programs that renovate and support both economic development, but also community safety and community redevelopment. We appreciate you, and we know we are working on some of those together. So, are there seeing no more speakers on the first reading portion of the agenda? The following ordinance appear on our agenda as consent actions. Will the clerk now read those into the record, please?
Resolution of Expression 59X-2024, 53X, 60X-2024. Finance and Governance Committee ordinances 551, 565, 583, 584, 608, 610, 645, 766, and 807-2024. Economic Development and Small and Minority Business Committee, Resolution 52X-2024, ordinances 617, 752, 787-2024. Public Service and Transportation Committee, Resolution 33X-2024, and ordinances 568, 575, 609, 665, 703, 720-2024. Neighborhoods, Recreation, and Parks Committee, ordinances 339, 401, 419, 473, 475, 476, 477, 478, 479, 505, 530, 541, 573, 574, and 602-2024. Workforce, Education, and Labor Committee, ordinances 321, 713, 714, 715-2024. Health, Human Services, and Equity Committee, ordinances 384, 391, 392, 509, 594, 697, 12-2024. Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, ordinances 172, 500, 526, 650, 686, 707-2024. Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, ordinances 380, 501, 513, 535, 537, 646, 717-2024. And Rules and Policy Committee, we have appointments from the Mayor's Office numbered A0079, 81, 82, 84, and 85-2024.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any questions or comments on the consent portion of the agenda? If we don't have any speakers on that, hearing none, may I have a motion of approval for these items? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Faber Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Consent portion of the agenda is passed. We'll now proceed with the second reading of 30-day postponed and emergency legislation. The first committee to come before council is the Finance and Governance Committee, chaired by Councilmember Bangston. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Harden. First up tonight in the Finance and Governance Committee for second reading, we have Ordinance 0518-2024 to authorize the city treasurer to modify its contract for banking services with J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, to authorize the expenditure of up to $1,156,000 from various funds within the city, and to declare an emergency. On December 12, 2022, the Columbus City Treasurer Office, in collaboration with the Department of Finance and Management and the City Auditor's Office, issued a request for proposals for various banking services. An evaluation committee comprised of 5 representatives from the City Treasurer's Office, Department of Public Utilities, Department of Finance and Management, the Division of Income Tax, and the City Auditor's Office received and reviewed those proposals for 6 weeks. From 6 banks. Several banks were awarded city banking services contracts via that process and have entered into 10-year contracts with the city, subject to an annual appropriations and approval of contracts by council. The treasurer now wishes to add funding on behalf of the city agencies receiving services for lockbox, merchant processing, and other related banking services which were the subject of aforementioned bids. The framework for pricing was determined during the previously mentioned bid process. Are any comments or questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Faber Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Next in the Finance and Governance Committee, we have Ordinance 0563-2024 to authorize the Director of Finance and Management on behalf of the Office of Construction Management to enter into a construction contract with General Temperature Control for the HVAC renovation for Gladden House project, to authorize the appropriation and expenditure of funds in an amount up to $1,432,049.76 within the Community Development Block Grant Fund 2248, to authorize the Director of Finance and Management to enter into a participation agreement with Franklin County and accept state and local fiscal recovery funds for the Gladden House project and to declare an emergency. Gladden Community House is a Franklinton-based settlement house that provides a range of social services to youth, adults, and families, as well as senior outreach and community crisis services in Franklinton, but also around our entire community. The contract mentioned in this ordinance was competitively bid and will include air handler replacements, variable air volume box replacements, temperature control replacements, electrical upgrades, and other necessary improvements to Gladden's HVAC system. This contract will be funded with Community Development Block Grant proceeds made available to the city for reinvestment in the community, as well as community partners. And really want to pause here and commend Director Owens and the entire team at the Department of Finance. This is really a collaboration of our partners at the county who saw value in this project and also awarded Gladden dollars. And then with the capacity, though, of that small organization, the city also wanted to put money into it. So we were able to collaborate with our partners at the county, come together to be able to manage this contract on behalf of this small organization and make sure that they have facilities and HVAC systems that are necessary to make sure that they're able to serve the youth in the entire community. So again, I want to commend Director Owens and specifically Lucy McMahon, who runs our Community Development Block Grant process, and also our Deputy Director who's here, Chris Long, for all the work that you all do. Direct investments like these into our community partners allow vital organizations like Gladden to continue serving those most in need in our community. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, Council President. So we have in our committees for second reading this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next committee to come before council is the Workforce, Education, and Labor Committee, chaired by Pres Pro Tem. Pres Pro Tem, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Tonight we have Ordinance 0440-2024 to authorize the Director of Department of Human Resources to enter into a contract with Baker & Hostetler LLP for the purpose of providing consulting services connected to collective bargaining agreements and related activities to authorize the expenditure of $250,000 from the Employee Benefit Fund to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Code and declare an emergency. This legislation further authorizes the expenditure of $250,000 for services related in conjunction with the collective bargaining negotiations and related activities. The competitive bid process would not have been conducive to ongoing and anticipated negotiations, as this firm brings a wealth of institutional knowledge and experience in ongoing labor relations and issues within the city of Columbus. Therefore, the department requested the waiver of competitive bidding. Emergency action is being requested to allow for the continuation of representation throughout the collective bargaining agreements and related activities with the FOP, IAFF, and AFSCME. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. And Council President, with your permission, I'd like to go back to the consent agenda to page 16 to Ordinance 0666-2024.
Please.
Thank you. There we have Ordinance 0666-2024 to authorize appropriation within the Neighborhood Initiative Subfund in support of the Columbus Youth Council, to authorize the city clerk to enter into a contract with Prime Tours, to authorize expenditure within the Neighborhood Initiative Subfund and declare an emergency. With this initiative being led by Councilmember Favor, I'm going to turn the floor over to her to talk a little bit more about the Columbus Youth Council and the opportunity that this ordinance will allow with this funding. Councilmember Favor?
Thank you, President Pro Tem Dorans. In 2019, when I joined City Council, I launched the Columbus Youth Council, a program aimed at giving Columbus City High School juniors and seniors an opportunity to immerse themselves in city government and learn how they can become stewards in their community. This year, we have 14 amazing students who have been learning about various topics and understanding both community engagement and how to advocate with various elected officials on issues that they care about. Since its inception, the goal of the Youth Council program was to culminate in a trip to DC for our students to meet with local elected officials at the federal level and immerse themselves in our nation's capital. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we have not been able to take this trip, so I'm very excited to finally be able to take this group of dynamic students to DC in April. My team went through an extensive process to request and review proposals from local tour companies who excel in planning trips for larger groups. This ordinance is to authorize the city clerk to enter into contract with Prime Tours. Turn it back over to President Pro Tem Dorans.
Thank you, Councilmember Faber. And I've had the opportunity to sit down a couple times with past cohorts of this program, and it's really amazing to see the young folks. In particular, I want to thank you and your office for all the work that goes into arranging the entire curriculum. So it's been a really awesome thing to see grow over the past number of years, and I appreciate all you and your staff's hard work to make that happen. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments about the legislation? Seeing none, I first move to amend as submitted to the clerk.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Amend it.
Thank you. Now I move for passage as amended.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you, Council President. That's all I have my committees at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next committee to come before council is the Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, chaired by Councilmember Faber. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. With your permission, I'd like to go to page 21 in second reading and read ordinance 0798-2024 out of order.
Please.
Thank you. Ordinance 0798-2024 is to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a nonprofit service contract with the Community Shelter Board for the purpose of continuing the city's support for men, women, and families who are experiencing or at risk of experiencing homelessness in Columbus, to authorize the payment of expenses starting January 1st, 2024, to authorize the transfer and expenditure of $5,409,650 from the general fund and to declare an emergency. The Community Shelter Board, or CSB, is the collective impact organization driving strategy, accountability, collaboration, and resources to achieve the best outcomes for people facing homelessness in Columbus and Franklin County. CSB has and will continue to administer the following 5 initiatives to address homelessness in our community: continuum of care application, crisis response, outreach services, permanent supportive housing services, and the safety net program. These programs provide support for men, women, and families who are experiencing or at risk of experiencing homelessness in Columbus. These 5 programs are funded as such: $10,000 for the Continuum of Care Consolidated Application, $1,537,704 for crisis response services, $117,000 for collaborative outreach service, $877,688 for permanent supportive housing services, $2,847,258 for safety net services, and $20,000 for temporary housing intervention. The services included in this contract cannot be provided by existing city employees because these services are beyond the city's current staffing capacity to provide. Are there any questions or comments by my colleagues? Seeing none, I'd move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. Council President Harden, with your permission, I'd like to go back to page 20, ordinance 0668-2024.
Sure.
Which reads, to authorize the Director of Department of Development to enter into a beneficiary grant agreement with the Community Shelter Board in an amount up to $9,467,191 of the Federal American Rescue Plan Act funds to provide operating support for CSB's Emergency Shelter Program and to pay for expenses starting January 1st, 2024, and to authorize the expenditure of $9,467,191 of ARPA funds and to declare an emergency. At this time, I'd like to invite Shannon Isom, President and CEO of the Community Shelter Board, to the podium. When I created the Housing for All legislative package, me and my colleagues took a bold stand to address this housing crisis. We firmly believe that housing is a human right, period, and this includes our homeless population. That is why I am so proud and excited to announce a historic $9.4 million investment in the Community Shelter Board. This is in addition to the $5.5 million allocation in the 2024 operating budget, which brings this year's city investment with CSB to a total of $14.9 million, which is nearly tripling the city's yearly funding in combating the homeless crisis. A 2023 point-in-time count showed Columbus's homeless population increased by 46%, with a 22% overall increase in residents in shelters and non-traditional housing. That's an all-time high for Franklin County. Focus Strategies, a national research firm, predicts that the housing affordability crisis in Columbus and in Franklin County will drive an 86% increase in unsheltered homelessness by 2028. This additional $9.4 million will be allocated towards CSB's emergency shelter program, which provides emergency shelters for men, women, and children. Will assist with funding shelter operations in 2024, including but not limited to raising the minimum wage to $21 an hour to intake staff, frontline engagement staff, and case management staff in emergency shelters. The shelters that will receive these funds include Lutheran Social Services, Faith Mission, Mary Haven Engagement Center, Southeast Incorporated, Friends of the Homeless, YWCA Family Center, and the YMCA Van Buren Center. As a city, we are at an inflection point. Do we accept the status quo or build a more inclusionary and progressive community for all Columbus residents? I firmly believe that we must do the latter, and it's bold choices and investments like these that will ensure a Columbus that works for everyone. Director Stevens, do you have any additional remarks you'd like to make at this time before I turn the podium over?
President Hardin, Chair Favors, members of council, I just want to express my appreciation for this investment that you're making in our community and the work you're doing to address the housing needs of our community. I don't want to get lost in this discussion, and I don't want to take up too much time of Shannon's time, but these are significant ARPA dollars going towards housing, and I just wanted to make that point, and thank you, and now I will yield for Shannon.
And before I turn it over, I would be remiss if we did not graciously thank our mayor, Mayor Andrew Ginther, for his support of this endeavor, as well as a department that continues to carry out, as well as my colleagues that have helped to advocate on behalf of the Community Shelter Board. With that, I turn it over to Ms. Isom.
Thank you. President Hardin, as well as Chair Favors, as well as Vice Chair Green. And also to the gentlewomen and the gentlemen of the council. Thank you for allowing me to speak on the dollars that have been put forward. Let me first, though, acknowledge that for National Women's History Month, that I stand here being able to note that I am on the shoulders of many women who have come before me, but also to say that equity pay won't be until the last woman sees it in this year, which is at the end of November for our Native and Indigenous sisters. Wow. Finally, the dollars in which we are asking and continue Community Shelter Board continues to ask is for those people who have been devastated by crisis, both through everyday crisis as well as environmental and capital structure crisis that puts them, like we just saw within this community, those that we mourn that have lost not only their lives but their homes as well here within our region due to some tornadoes that we saw. We know that homelessness can happen at any moment, at any time, and due to that, it is imperative that we hold space for those that are marginalized, like we do now for the month for women, and also for those that are seeing crisis devastate them in homelessness. And because I embody both, I get to say that these dollars wholeheartedly will be used for not only our 16 partners and, more importantly, the emergency shelter partners that take care of that particular community every single solitary day, but it will also see that our community members will be able to see and to close some operational deficits that they have themselves been living with and operating with all year. And then finally, we do have some community members that we are taking care of that for no fault of their own have found themselves in situation with destabilization of housing. So these dollars will be used for them as well. We thank you. And then finally, then with all things, we would like to also, with the City Council, thank the City Administration as well as the Mayor. It is not lost on me that there have been endless phone calls, time, and leaning in to get this done. I appreciate it. We thank you. We will continue to do the good work as well as to be able to articulate the gaps that we're going to need some continued work on.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Isom? Council President?
Thank you, Chair Favor. Thank you for your leadership on this, really to the entire council, and to, I would also echo my appreciation to the mayor and administration, Director Stevens, for helping us get these additional dollars out the door. Shannon, in our many conversations, we talk about the larger crises that this community is facing, that is growing, not shrinking. And we know that this is the largest investment our city has made, our tripling in our 1 year investment. But again, would you help us highlight the gap, where we're going, and what will actually be needed to, one, shore up the system, which is one issue, but then two, to start to make forward progress in reducing the number of unhoused folks we have in our community. Those are two really big issues, and I will also say before you answer that it is not on you and the shelter board alone to solve that issue. It is on all of us to solve that issue. It is on all of us, especially this dais, to support more housing in our community, because homelessness is a downstream effect of not having enough housing. But it's also on community members and residents who in a few minutes will come to our zoning meeting and talk about there being too much density and too many units being brought on the market. So I don't want to put all this on the shelter board. You cannot solve this alone, and truthfully, this council nor can this city solve this alone. However, we do need to understand and be clear-eyed about the resources that it's going to take to keep as many of our residents sheltered and housed in homes going forward.
Yes, thank you for the question, President Hardin. What we do know is that each and every day that we are seeing even more of our region's ability to correct itself because of the amount of vacancies that we continue not to see. Likewise, because we have such low vacancy, we also have a low level of development for housing. You put those two things together in any city, in any community, you are going to see a homeless problem. What we also have within this community is that we have one of 13 systems that are a unified funding system, which CSB is, that we know is the most progressive system in the nation. We have it here. No other county has had it except Cincinnati, that just studied us, that just implemented it within this past year. So we have the right tools to at least, what you said, shore it up. We have the right tools. We have the right resources. We have the right intellectual acumen. We have the most progressive model. But what we don't have, but other cities don't have it either, is affordable housing development. We need to have it. We all know it here. We don't have a system that can make affordable housing. Developers make affordable housing. We know it, that it doesn't matter how much money you give me to shelter, sheltering won't make housing. We must have housing development. I would say, I will also tell you that we need 0 to 30% housing. As it stands right now, we have some of that spilled off in development. But what we believe that we need to shore it up is that we need at least 350 units every single solitary year for 5 years. And it still won't be enough, but it will get us into a point where we can put our arms around it. And then we need investment. We know this. I would tell you that this three-legged stool called Community Shelter Board that saw the Franklin County and then the city and then the business plus philanthropy is and still is a good model. I would say that we must collectively come together all on the same page to say that not only the model works, but we want to invest in it and we want to see it be successful. And I will tell you that will also shore it up. It will also give me some more time to look for more dollars elsewhere across the region, within the state, and federally, and bring those dollars here. Because see, that part of the model, we've already shored up. We're not quite there at the first shore, but we can get there, and then we can have more dollars come in. And then finally, how do we get above it? Well, above it is the hard part. I think that we are still years away from it, but the cost of not doing something now will not only be an economic strain, it will be a housing strain, an environmental strain. And I'm going to also tell you it's going to be a human capital strain. So we must start some of this investment right now, but to get over, we need to do it for probably close to 2 decades. That's a long time. But the 2 decades are going to pass anyway. So we might as well start now. I tried not to talk about the money, President Hardin, because we know that we can get the money once we are connected to the mindset. And that's what I believe right now that we're working on. Our collective, not attempt, but our collective resolve that we can cure for homelessness.
Well, I believe that as well, and I believe that has to be our mission and has to be our goal as a community, regardless of how scary and bold sounding that is. If not, then what are we doing here? Thank you again for your leadership.
Thank you.
Any additional comments, questions at this time by my colleagues? Once again, I just want to extend my full appreciation to the Community Shelter Board, specifically to Ms. Isom, who has been a tireless advocate for, I think you've only been here a year. And you have demonstrated great resolve for working on this issue in our community. And I wholeheartedly appreciate the fierceness in which you advocate for individuals who do not get the type of attention, do not receive the dignity of care and service as all human beings can and do deserve. And so thank you for that work that you continue to do on our behalf every single day in our community. And once again, to the mayor, to Director Stevens, to my colleagues for continuing in our advocacy for addressing housing insecurity overall in our community. And when we talk about our strategy, this is a part of it. We cannot afford to be siloed in our approach, that we have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. And so while we are incentivizing development across the board, that we also have policies in play, thanks to Councilmember Barosa de Padilla, that's ensuring that women and families are making a decent wage, because we know when we dig into the numbers of homelessness in our community, it's women and more specifically mothers who are experiencing homelessness at egregious rates in our community. That's why policies that are falling under Housing for All are so incredibly important, to ensure that there are proper tenant protections in place, to ensure that people are not being discriminated as it relates to housing. And so all of these things are working collectively to address housing and housing insecurity in our community. Thank you for being a part of the solution.
Chair Favor.
Yes, ma'am.
Just one other thing I wanted to add, and this is just a very short statement. I think I also want to elevate that you have moved the conversation beyond the Community Shelter Board, which really we could talk about the Community Housing Board. And have moved the conversation beyond how do we shelter people, but how do we really house people? And what is the role of the Community Shelter Board, and how are we thinking about that? And how are we thinking about beyond sheltering folks, but really getting them into a place that they can truly call home? And I think that, to Chair Favor's point, I think that that is key, because this was the time for us. We were probably a little bit behind the 8 ball in moving this conversation forward. Now is the time for us to really push that forward, because we are facing tremendous growth, and a lot of what is driving that growth is, I think, it was interesting. I was having a conversation where we talk about the intels, we talk about these other things that are driving our growth, but what we know is that it is more vulnerable communities that are coming into Columbus that is really driving our growth. And we need to care for those folks, and we need to make sure that they do have, that they can truly call Columbus home. home and have a place in Columbus that they can call home. So I just wanted to elevate that because I think that this investment is moving us and pivoting us to a conversation that goes well beyond shelter and really truly is a conversation about housing.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, favor green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 0681-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to establish contracts with various contractors for the maintenance of properties maintained by the Division of Land Redevelopment, to waive competitive bidding requirements of the Columbus City Code, to allow expenditures prior to the establishment of purchase orders, to authorize the appropriation of $550,000, to authorize the expenditure of up to $1,210,000 from the Land Management Fund, and to declare an emergency. The Department of Development advertised a request for quote process through the Vendor Services Portal. A total of 19 responses were received, and a total of 13 contractors were selected by an evaluation committee consisting of staff from the Department of Development and the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. The qualifications were based on prior experience, equipment, staffing, and other factors. The resulting contracts will be established for 1 year with an option to extend an additional year. The department will establish 10 contracts for property maintenance services and 8 contracts for lawn maintenance, with a total of 13 contractors being selected, with some of the contractors performing both property and lawn maintenance services. Of the total contracts, 50% will be issued to MBE or WBE contractors. If all contractors who qualify for the MBE and WBE certification obtain the certification, that percentage could increase to 89%. The division will encourage the contractors to obtain and renew their certification. At this time of this legislation, the Department of Development can move forward with awarding 10 contractors a total of 14 contracts. The department will return to council once the 3 remaining vendors have updated their vendor accounts, allowing the establishment of their respective 4 contracts. Are there any questions or comments by my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, favor green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. That's all I have in my committees.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next committee coming for council is the Health, Human Service, and Equity Committee, chaired by Councilmember Green. Councilman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Harden. Tonight in Health, Human Services, and Equity Committee, we have one ordinance on second reading. It is ordinance number 0706-2024 to authorize and direct the Board of Health to grant or to accept a grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services for the Healthy Start Grant Program in the amount of $1,100,000, to authorize the appropriation of $1,100,000 from the unappropriated balance of the Health Department Grants Fund, and to declare an emergency. Columbus Public Health has been awarded a grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. This ordinance is needed to accept and appropriate the grant monies to fund the Healthy Start Grant Program for the period of April 1st, 2024 through March 31st of 2025. This program enables CPH to conduct services through an evidence-based program called My Baby and Me, focusing primarily on African American women residing within the city of Columbus. Healthy Start is funded to serve over 700 clients, including 300 pregnant women and 300 infants and children up to the age of 18 months, as well as preconception women, and 100 fathers or male partners affiliated with the women participating in this program. Clients receive education on pregnancy, women's health, infant health, and growing and growth development information, as well as safety and nutrition information, immunizations, breastfeeding, and safe sleep. Assistant Health Commissioner Anita Clark, I would like to see if you wanted to speak very briefly about the program and the impact it's having on the community, especially related to our work in the infant mortality and maternal mortality space.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, President Harden, Chair Green, and other members of council. I think what's most exciting about this program, you mentioned a lot about it already, but we really have fathers and male partners that are served in this program, and this is really to help us facilitate factors amongst infant mortality. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Let me move it closer. All right. Sorry about that, guys. I think one of the really important factors about this program is really the fathers and male partners that are served utilizing this program, and it really helps to strengthen the presence of fathers in our families and community. In 2024, we will also be doing group-based services with prenatal, postpartum, and parenting education. And this program is completely voluntary and free of cost, and I think that's important for the community to know. So would love for this to be considered favorably in this ordinance, so I'm happy to answer any other questions you have.
No, that's awesome. Did anyone else have any comments or questions they want to make? Okay, wonderful. Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing that. And seeing no other questions, then I move for passage.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Thank you, President Harden. That's all we had tonight.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Madam Chair. Next committee coming before council is the Public Utilities Committee, chaired by Councilmember White.
Thank you, President Harding. Tonight, I have 5 ordinances in public utilities and sustainability coming before council. First, we have ordinance 0431-2024 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to enter into a construction contract with Danbert, Inc. for the Blueprint 5th Ave by Northwest Sunrise Glen water line improvements, and Eastview and Elmwood sidewalks projects, to authorize an amendment to the 2023 capital improvement budget, to authorize the appropriation and transfer of funds from the sanitary sewer reserve fund to the sanitary revolving loan fund, and from the water reserve fund to the water fresh water market rate fund, to authorize the appropriation of funds within the sanitary revolving loan fund and within the water fresh water market rate fund, to authorize the expenditure of up to $7,972,070.86 from the sanitary revolving loan fund, the sanitary bond fund, the water fresh water market rate fund, and the streets and highways bond fund to pay for the project and to declare an emergency. This project will construct approximately 50 rain gardens and storm sewers in the right-of-way, relocate water lines, and restore pavement and sidewalks as part of the Blueprint Columbus program. Let me stop there, see if there are any questions or comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, I have ordinance 0467-2024 to authorize the city attorney to spend city funds to acquire and accept in good faith certain fee simple and lesser real estate located in the vicinity of Walhalla Road between East Longview Ave and Clinton Heights, and contract for associated professional services in order for the Department of Public Utilities to timely complete the acquisition of real estate for the Walhalla Ravine Stream restoration, to authorize an amendment to the 2023 capital improvement budget, to authorize the expenditure of $60,000 from the sanitary bond fund, and to declare an emergency. This ordinance is the first step to begin the Walhalla Ravine project. This project will help preserve one of our city's precious natural resources while reducing erosion and runoff. The department has hosted a robust community engagement process that has led to updated designs. While this is simply the first step, the department will continue to gather feedback from neighbors and affected properties. So let me stop there, see if there are any questions or comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row. My bad.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 0483-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Utilities to modify and extend a service agreement with Planning Communities for the Columbus MSA Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Engagement and Plan Development, and to authorize the expenditure of $150,000 from the Electricity Grants Fund. This modification will add additional funds and extend the utilities agreement. These funds will be used towards the Priority Climate Action Plan and the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan. The contract will be extended from March 2025 to May 2027. I will stop there, see if there are any questions or comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Next, we have ordinance 0558-2024 to authorize the expenditure of $16,830,000 or so much thereof as may be necessary from the Division of Refuse Collection General Fund to pay 2024 waste disposal tipping fees and radiation remediation services for the Division of Refuse Collection, to authorize the Director of Public Service to establish an encumbrance of $16,800,000 to pay refuse tipping fees to the Solid Waste Authority of Central Ohio for the Division of Refuse Collection pursuant to an existing lease agreement, to authorize the Director of Public Service to modify and extend a radiation and remediation service contract with Solient Technologies, Inc. to establish an encumbrance of up to $30,000 for radiation remediation services contract with Solient Technologies, LLC, and to declare an emergency. This ordinance provides the funds needed to cover the tipping fees we pay to haul residential trash to the landfill. The amount is based on historical data. I will stop there and see if there are any questions or comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. And last, we have ordinance 0719-2024 to authorize the interim director of public service to renew the contract with Rumpke of Ohio, Inc. for yard waste and recycling collection services, to authorize the expenditure of $17,732,896 from the general fund for the 7th year of the contract and to declare emergency. This ordinance renews the contract for another 8 years of yard waste and recyclables collection services. The increase to the contract covers our weekly recyclable collection and expands the Glass on High project in addition to providing more litter receptacles. I'll stop there, see if there are any questions or comments from my colleagues. Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, and that is all I have for my committee this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. See no further business come before council. Just joking. Do I have something? Oh, it's not. Next committee to come before council is the Rules and Policy Committee. I chair that committee, but I'm going to throw it to Councilman Remy where he has a piece of legislation. Councilman Remy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Council President. Tonight, I have ordinance 768-2024 to amend and repeal various code sections in Chapter 216, Chapter 217, Title 5, and 29 of the Columbus City Codes in order to transfer the licensing section and the weights and measures section from the Department of Public Safety to the Department of Building and Zoning Services and to declare an emergency. In a continued effort to improve operational efficiencies, provide better services to the public, and to streamline government organization and communication, it was determined that the licensing section and the weights and measures section should be relocated from the Department of Public Safety to the Department of Building and Zoning Services. This move will improve upon the existing strong coordination between the licensing section and the Department of Building and Zoning Services Division of Code Enforcement, which work together currently on licensing issues involving food trucks, massage parlors, and the like. The code changes made by this ordinance will make the necessary adjustments to allow for the smooth and seamless transfer of this enforcement authority. Director Messer, would you like to speak to this impending change?
Thank you, Councilmember Remy, President Harden, other members of council. Yes, we're excited about this change that's going to be made. The synergy that it's going to bring is going to include better customer service, a lot of the technology that we use as a regulatory agency. We're looking forward to implementing some of that for licensing and weights and measures as well. I will say this move has been the culmination of a long amount of work, and I do want to express my thanks to many of the other departments. This is a team effort. We have public safety, the auditor's office, city attorney, civil service, a number of departments that were involved in this. And so I just want to express my gratitude for all the work that went into it, and I'm looking forward to the move.
Thank you very much, Director Messer. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues this evening? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcauer, Dorans, Favor, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Ordinance is passed.
Thank you. That is all I have this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And now there is no further business to come before council. I am remiss, I should have said this during the announcement portion of our agenda, but last week we lost an officer in the city of Columbus. He was not on duty, but he was a younger officer who, on his way home from work, was in an accident. We, as a council and as a city, are praying for his family as they lay him to rest this week. If there's no further business coming before council, is there a motion to adjourn? Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Dayall, Coward, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
The meeting is adjourned. We have 12.
Turn it out. Turn it out. Come on, everybody, don't stop, don't quit. Do it like this. Do it like this. Do it like this.
Padilla, Dayall, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal?
So moved.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Dayall, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Are there any additions or corrections to the journal? Hearing none, the journal is approved. We'll now go to the zoning committee. Councilmember Dorrance chairs that committee. All members serve on it. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Harden. Before we begin tonight's zoning agenda, first a little bit of housekeeping. Will the clerk please read the numbers of legislation in the zoning committee that require waiver of second reading?
Ordinance is 702, 689, and 691-2024.
Thank you. I first move to waive second reading on those items read aloud?
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Dayall, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Yep.
Thank you. Now allow me to briefly explain our current rules pertaining to speaking for council on rezonings and variances. We only hear a staff presentation for ordinances that have a disapproval from a recommending body, or if we have a public speaker signed up to speak against an ordinance. We allow 3 speakers in favor and 3 speakers against any ordinance. If someone who signed up to speak is not present, the next person on the list will fill in that slot. All speakers on the council variance, including city staff, area commissions, applicants, and members of the public, will be required to be sworn in before they give testimony. Representatives of area commission and applicants are always able to speak on an ordinance and do not need to fill out a speaker slip. Here this evening, we have 2 public speaker slips signed up, and I know the chair of the Far Northwest Civic Association is also here to speak on their recommendation for one of our pieces of legislation. Allow me to first swear in city staff on the Vice City Attorney's Office. Please stand and raise your right hand and be sworn in. Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, nothing but the truth, that you shall answer to pains of penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do. Thank you. Please let the record reflect that Tim Dietrich from the Department of Building and Zoning Services, Christopher Lohr from the Division of Planning, and Dan Bleshman from the Department of Public Service have been sworn in. First, we have ordinance 07022-2024 to rezone 666 East Fifth Avenue, being .95 plus acres located on the north side of East Fifth Avenue, 340 plus feet east of Cleveland Avenue, from C4 Commercial District to CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The site consists of 2 parcels currently developed with an eating and drinking establishment in the C4 Commercial District. The requested rezoning will allow redevelopment of the site with a car wash facility. The proposal has approvals from city staff, Development Commission, and the Milo Grogan Area Commission. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Dayall, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 3392-2023 to rezone 5925 Sawmill Road, being .86 plus acres located on the west side of Sawmill Road, 325 plus feet south of Kinnear Drive, from CPD Commercial Plan Development District to CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The site consists of 1 parcel developed with a vacant eating and drinking establishment. The requested rezoning will allow redevelopment of the property with commercial uses, including a potential drive-through eating and drinking establishment or a car wash facility. The proposal has approvals from city staff, Development Commission, but a disapproval from the Far Northwest Civic Association. Due to that disapproval from the Civic, we will now hear a staff presentation from Mr. Tim Dietrich from Department of Building and Zoning Services. Mr. Dietrich, the floor is yours.
Chair Dorrance, President Harden, members of council, the 0.86 acre site consists of 1 parcel developed with an eating and drinking establishment in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District and is subject to the Sawmill Road Regional Commercial Overlay. The requested CPD Commercial Plan Development District will allow redevelopment of the property with commercial uses, including limited C5 uses. The CPD text includes appropriate use restrictions and supplemental development standards, and also includes commitment to 2 different site plans, one demonstrating a drive-through eating and drinking establishment and the other demonstrating a car wash facility. The Northwest Plan recommends mixed use 1 at this location, consistent with the allowable uses of the proposed CPD district. The submitted site plans and development texts include commitments to street trees, pedestrian connectivity, seasonal outdoor dining space, and building materials, achieving compatibility with the plan's design guidelines.
Thank you, Mr. Dietrich. You had mentioned the Northwest Plan. What year was that plan adopted?
That was adopted in 2016.
Thank you. We'll also hear from representatives from City Division of Planning and Traffic Division from Public Service. Mr. Christopher Lohr is here from the planning staff. Asked him to be here tonight to speak to their division's approval of the application. Mr. Lohr, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Harden, Chair Dorrance, members of council. The Planning Division supports the use, but did request revisions that were met by the applicant. The Northwest Plan recommends this location for Mixed-Use 1, which is consistent with the proposal, as standalone commercial uses are supported within the Mixed-Use 1 classification. Additionally, the plan's commercial design guidelines also recommend that buildings be parallel to and facing the street with an entrance door connecting to the public sidewalk. Staff requested a pedestrian walkway that connects from the building to the sidewalk on Sawmill Road. Staff also requested elevations for the proposed restaurant or car wash, as well as additional information regarding the screening and landscaping of the parking lot from both the Sawmill frontage as well as the neighboring residential to the west. Staff also encouraged revisions for the car wash site plan such that the main building is oriented in a fashion that conceals more of the parking lot from Sawmill Road, consistent with plan design guidelines. Finally, we requested that the applicant provide street trees along the Sawmill Road frontage in consultation with the city forester. The revised site plans and development text incorporate street trees, a pedestrian connection, and building material commitments, satisfying our comments, and that is all planning has. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lohr. Next, I want to move to comments from Mr. Dan Bleshman from the Department of Public Services Traffic Management Division to comment on their approval for this application. Mr. Bleshman?
Thank you, Chair Dorans, members of council. Our comments concerned the necessary right-of-way dedication along the Sawmill Road frontage and the site circulation patterns for this proposed site. A right-of-way dedication exception was reviewed and approved to maximize the area of right-of-way dedication while maintaining existing site elements. The site circulation patterns were adjusted to improve access patterns for both the potential car wash and the potential drive-through restaurant uses. Based on the applicant addressing these previous comments, the Department of Public Service is supportive of this proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Bleshman. I want to pause and see if any of my council colleagues have questions for the departments at this time. Seeing none, I will ask for comments from the applicant's representative, Mr. Sean Mennel. Welcome back to council, sir.
Thank you, Chair Dorans, President Harden, members of council. I am Sean Mental, attorney for the applicant. I know we've got a few speakers, so I am happy to answer any questions, but otherwise would be more than happy to come back up. Just as kind of a bit of background, the applicant acquired this property in April of 2022, tried to market it for over a year for the uses permitted in the C4 district with no interest, and that's what spurred this application to include 2 uses within the C5 district as staff notified or presented. And those 2 uses were sought out based on, that was the interest shown by potential users of the site. So I can answer any questions that you may have or happy to address.
Mr. Miller, can you talk about that timeline again? So your client acquired the property at what time, and sort of how long was that process laid out in which they were, again, attempting to market the property to end users?
The property was acquired in April of 2022, and so they marketed it for over a year for the C4 uses, and there was just no response, no interest. The interest that was generated for the site was interest in the 2 C5 uses that we're applying for. And, of note, when this property was originally zoned, those C5 uses, this was before the C5 uses were separated out into the highway-oriented district, the C5 district. So these uses, at one point before, I think it was 2010, that the code changed, were permitted, and over the years have not, or were removed out, and so hence the application to add them back in at this point.
Thank you. Any questions from colleagues from the applicant's representative this time? I'll call you back up after we hear from the public speakers. Okay. Thank you. The first speaker to come before the body is Samuel Somoza. Welcome to council, sir. If you don't mind stating your name and any relationship you have to the property, but I believe you're here representing the Civic Association, right? All right. Thank you.
I am not representing the...
Okay.
I am just a part of it.
Gotcha. Sorry about that.
Hello, my name is Samuel Samoas, and I am a citizen of the great city of Columbus and also a trustee of the Northwest Civic Association. I joined the Northwest Civic Association because I like to know more about my community and also to partner with you, the City Council, on serving our community and making sure it's a great place to live and a great place to be. And one of the things that I appreciate about what we do is that we listen to our neighbors. We spend a lot of time proposing different ideas, but mostly we take care of a lot of zoning requirements. Most of them are passed, and we hear every single applicant. We spend a lot of time studying and knowing everything about each application. This one was unanimously, it was disagreed upon unanimously. The 5925 Sawmill Road proposal was against our vision of a location where people can meet with people rather than a car that goes through a car wash or a car that goes through and just have a scan or a digital connection and a faceless contact. We want to have places in our community where people can see others, where they can connect with others. We do not have a library in our community. We do not have places where we can gather as a community. We don't have a city street where we walk or we spend time with our neighbors. So another car wash or another C5 zone would not provide that for us. What we're looking for is the ability to recognize the desires of our neighbors. And we have several car washes, so many that we can wash our car each day of the week at a different place. And never leave our area. Not only so, but in our civic meetings, they jokingly call us the Ohio capital of car washing because of so many, but mostly because recently there was a rezoning proposal that was made by one applicant that we unanimously disagreed, but the City Council approved, and now is a big eyesore in our area, is something that every time we look at, we are reminded of our failure to listen and to advocate for our neighbors. So what we want to do is make sure that the council members are aware and partner with us on the desires, and also as we serve our neighbors, as we serve those who are a part of our neighborhoods. And what we want to do is be able to have a place where we can welcome not only visitors, but those that are new residents in our community. So thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from any members? Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you.
The next speaker we have to come before council is Ms. Hannah Cox. Ms. Cox, welcome to council.
Thank you, Chairman Doors. Hello, my name is Hannah Cox, and I'm a resident of Northwest Columbus. I'm here today to speak against the rezoning of 5925 Sawmill Drive. As a resident in this community, I would like new establishments in the area to be places where people can want to stay and which serve the needs of the populace. More importantly, I would like this rezoning to have been made known to said community outside of the Northwest Civic Association meeting in which I heard of this. I would have no way of knowing about this rezoning. There are no signs or information at the site, and I speak often to friends and neighbors about the importance of getting involved with and supporting local government, but seeing a lack of care or information in a situation like this is demoralizing and discourages, I think, individuals from getting involved. The community wants to be heard and wants to know that their voice is respected. We already have 8 car washes in the area, like Sam said, and we don't need another drive-through only eatery. We want to know that the City Council listens to their constituents and not just developers. So please consider voting against this rezoning, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. Any questions from council members for Ms. Cox? Thank you for being here. The final speaker to come before council on this rezoning is Ms. Monica Dorman Tuttle. Ms. Tuttle, welcome back to council.
Good evening, council members. Thank you so much for your time and attention to this rezoning. I feel like I keep coming in front of you about a car wash. I hope to see you on some other subject in the near future. Just a couple of points that I would like to draw your attention to. I'm sure that you have all received my 3-page letter that I submitted, and you had the opportunity to review that with your aides and assistants. I did present a packet of photos that I'd just like to point out a couple of quick things. On page 1, it locates this site within the larger community, and you can see it's substantially residential. Although it is along a commercial corridor, it is really at the edge of this residential area. Page 2 points out the difficulty in accessing this particular site. You'll see the parcel is approximated with the red box. You'll see that there is a circle around the bus stop that is there. Not only is this an existing bus stop, but this is also a proposed terminal on the Link-Us BRT route. Obviously, none of that has been decided, but in an effort to support this future redevelopment, we think that this is particularly contrary to moving in that direction. If you'll note the yellow line, that would indicate how a northbound car would actually get to this site. Sawmill is divided. They would not be able to turn left at Sawdust. They would have to go up to Tuller, come down, and come around into the site. Additionally, when you're exiting the site, you can't go out to Sawmill Drive because Sawdust is divided with a median. And so cars would have to turn away from Sawmill and then come down these smaller residential roads. If I can point you briefly to page 5, you'll see, and I'm sorry that they're not numbered, this is actually that intersection that we're looking at. So you can see this divided alleyway or small lane here. There is still the desire. I can certainly see people exiting this property wanting to turn left in disobedience of rules and then make that southbound turn onto Sawmill. So we have concerns about that. Page 3, if you flip back, just demonstrates that there hasn't been any signage on this property at any time since this property has been purchased, indicating that this would be built to suit or that this is available for lease. I heard the applicant's attorney indicate that the property was purchased in April and they marketed it aggressively for over 1 year. None of that marketing occurred on site or was visible to the neighbors. Furthermore, if it was purchased in March, they could not possibly have marketed it for 1 year because the application was submitted to us on March 29th. If I could just point you briefly to the photos on 7, that shows the proximity to the residents and how close those residents would be. 8 is that small alleyway that would run between this proposed development and the residents. And then 9 is from the residential area there looking directly back. The other small clarification that I would like to make, I'm sorry if I can.
You may finish.
I would just like to point out that Northwest Civic was never provided with any updates to this site plan. Had that been the case, they have not been presented to us. We understand that that is the applicant's responsibility to provide us with those updates. And so the only thing that we are working with is what the applicant originally submitted to us. And it is not, as you saw in my comments, it is not consistent with the Northwest Plan design guidelines. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'd like to invite the applicant's representative back up.
Thank you, Chair Dorns. I guess we heard a number of things, and I was jotting them down as the speakers presented them. So if okay with you, I'll go through the. Sure. The first issue that the vote at the Civic Association was unanimous. You'll see in your packet, the vote was 5-1, still defeated, but we did have one member that supported the proposal. The second issue that was raised and raised again was about the signage. I shared with your office photos to file a zoning in Columbus and to get it moving, and staff can correct me on this, but you have to pick up the signs at the at the Coleman Center, and you have to place them on the property and then submit photos of the signs as placed. As soon as we were notified and heard that the signs were not there, we came back, picked up new signs, put them back out. So, I think because this process has, because the zoning has been in process for over a year, I don't know whether, or I'm not sure what had happened, but we certainly had signs out to start the process, and when we were notified, replaced those signs. The issue that was just raised, so jumping out of order a little bit, but the issue that was just raised about updated plans and revised plans, this was also brought up by the Civic Association at Development Commission, and they said this is the first time we're seeing these plans, we're being notified of these updates. So that Development Commission was in August of last year. So that the plans have not changed since that point. So that's when the plans were updated and they were made aware of those changes. Just making sure the reference to the residential that, staff pointed that out. It is residential to the west of the site, but it's commercial to the north, south, and east. And there is a road that runs between the residential to the west and the site. So I think I guess I would take any questions on those responses if there's.
Questions from council members?
There's any.
Seen them.
So.
Oh, Councilmember Green.
Well, it was about one other thing that she had mentioned that you didn't address. She had said something about, you had mentioned that the property had been marketed for a year for rent, but the applicant submitted, when did the purchase happen?
And I'll
of the
confirm
property?
that. And I think the application was submitted in March, purchased in April, submitted in March. So I think it could have been 11 months and a few weeks. And I'm sorry, and the property was being marketed before they closed on the property as well.
Yeah, so you bought it in 2022 then?
Closed in 2022.
Oh, okay.
Filed the application in 2023.
Got it, thank you.
So I think the issue that I heard, one of the issues that I heard and has been brought up is the Link-Us corridor, changing the dynamics of Sawmill Road, kind of shifting, as we're trying to do citywide, region-wide, shifting our focus from automobiles to mass transit, bicycles, other types of travel, and kind of shifting away from auto-centric and everything being focused on cars, which, I think is a good thing for our community and something that we're going to hopefully achieve here over the next couple decades, hopefully sooner. But a couple of things relative to this property. First of all, the property owner has agreed and committed to dedicate expanded right-of-way for the BRT corridor, the proposed BRT corridor that's going to run on Sawmill Road. And that's at no cost to the city. It was a commitment by the property owner to say, look, we see this change coming. We want to be a part of it. We're committing this right-of-way at no cost. So I think as important as the lack of cost for the property, also the time. Acquiring right-of-way by a public entity is an arduous process, to say the least. So with that commission of additional right-of-way, that also reduces the size of the lot. The response that we were getting while marketing the property for the C4 uses was it's not conducive because of the size and kind of the dimensions of the property. So that made it challenging for other uses on the site. Now, in terms of this is a car-centric use, or these two uses would be car-centric if utilized, that is, I think, a valid point. But I also think it's important to note, we're not going to change behaviors overnight. And I think, considering this corridor in and of itself, it's a phased corridor. It's at a minimum 3 phases, and I know that Dublin wants to continue out west, so it could potentially be 4. But phase 1, which runs from downtown and completes at Olentangy and Bethel Road, is a phase that is in the early design stage. And at best estimates right now, that phase would be completed, constructed, and ready for use in 2030. So that's phase one. Phase two would then run west on Bethel Road, head north on Sawmill, and that portion would encompass this location. So I haven't seen the timeline on that phase. I don't know of any timelines that exist, but it's certainly going to be as a second phase after the 2030 deadline, or rather completion date. So I think to consider the changes which are coming, I think they're twofold, right? We're gonna build these corridors to try to change behaviors, but we have to, as behaviors change, that's what's going to generate the results that we're hoping to get from these corridors and kind of the encouragement of people to mass transit and to other modes of transportation. So the market forces which drove users to consider this site and not consider or not be willing to fit the C4 uses into the configuration of this site are, I think, the same forces, those market forces that will be driven by seeing the change of phase one, seeing the change of the West Broad Street corridor, the East Main corridor, seeing the changes in our behavior in Central Ohio for a user or a landowner to say to a user, look, this is the way Columbus is now. This is where you want to be pedestrian-centric. This is where it's going to work. And those market forces then are going to, the car wash is going to say, the fast food restaurant's going to say, with the drive-through without seating is going to say, look, this doesn't work here. As you may know, commercial leases are typically 10 years. And so I know that sounds like a long time, but in terms of thinking, if a user were to come in today, 2034, assuming that was a 10-year lease, just use a kind of rule of thumb on commercial side, user comes in, moves out, are they going to renew? If we've changed behavior, they see the next phase coming, they know that Sawmill Road's going to change, they know that there's going to be less than 30,000 vehicles traveling on that road a day. I mean, I think that's where you're going to see the market forces changing the behavior of users looking for property to operate on.
Chair Dorns, I have a couple of questions.
Councilmember.
Good evening, Mr. Mento. I have a question, point of clarification. So you mentioned that has the right-of-way already been donated to the city, or what, can you tell me?
It has been committed, and Dan, you can maybe comment on where that stands. I know we worked with the Division of Traffic to finalize that right-of-way dedication.
Typically, that would occur with the final site compliance plan approval.
Because, so my wonder is that if we're waiting for, if giving the right-of-way to the city or committing the right-of-way to the city lessens the size of the property, but we're not looking to develop it for time, it's years off, then would it affect the actual footprint of the property now if it could be redeveloped later? Because what it sounded like I heard was that part of the challenge was because the footprint of the property wasn't as large, it limited what could potentially go into the property. But if at this point we have the full length of the property because it's not shortened, because it won't be developed for a while, then would that not open up potential other choices and maybe not limit it to the two that were mentioned?
Sure, Councilmember. Yes, I think what you're saying is if you didn't dedicate that right-of-way, could you have potentially more?
Could we later, if we're going to redevelop it?
When we were marketing it, before we agreed to dedicate that, there was no interest. And so we're going to have to give up that property or that right-of-way through some process or potentially have to as LinkUs starts to come through. But that's looking at potentially a process where the city comes in and looks to take the property by eminent domain.
Sure. And then my other question for our my friends at Public Service, as I look at the constraints of both Stardust and Sawmill Road because of the berm that runs in the middle, dividing the directional traffic, can you talk a little bit specifically about what the impact might be, in particular if you were heading north and then coming around, just because that's a pretty big loop, and traveling along Sawmill, I know that if you are, depending upon which direction you are traveling in and where you want to go, it does cause traffic to kind of loop around. So have we looked at what potential traffic impacts could look like if it is something where there would be rotating traffic, something like a drive-through or a car wash or something where there's continuous traffic like that?
Sure, and Councilmember Padilla, the site was laid out to try to help that. In some of the previous versions were a little limiting on where you could only enter from one direction, where at least both these site plans for both the uses, one may enter and exit from both the Sawdust Lane and the Sawtooth Lane access points. So, but overall, this is not significantly changing what can be done on the property as it is today. It's basically set up pretty well because it has a backage road, which is usually a safer place to access a property as opposed to having direct access to Sawmill. So overall, we typically encourage access on a backage road like is present here. So as far as negative traffic impacts, I wouldn't anticipate, even with the most intense use here that's proposed, I wouldn't anticipate any significant off-site impacts created from either of these proposed site plans.
Got it. Thank you.
Other questions from council members to the applicant's representative? Seen them. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did have a question directly to planning on this front. So again, there's a couple of different things going on here. And I think this is a lot of the feedback we've heard from folks from the Civic Association and others regarding, hey, between Zone In initiative in which we're modernizing Columbus zoning code, which is going to redo not only the code itself, but also the maps. And this is a parcel that is there. But also there's been lots of discussion around Link Us. So I think one of the messages that council has heard from particularly the Civic Association is like, hey, we're trying to change development patterns within parts of the city that again would be less reliant just on auto-centric uses. And here we have before us is potentially, I think both options that have been sort of articulated here are both very auto-centric. How do we square those two with one another? When I say to someone from planning who's looking at both those different sort of competing things that are out there right now, sort of what the hopes are of the future as we look 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, but what is directly before the body here today, and planning is in support of the proposal. So you could just sort of speak to why we're sort of in that position where we're like making this call today, there's an approval versus what, there's some goal down the line that these things would look different.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Chair Dorns. The plan in place there, the Northwest Plan, recommends mixed use, which doesn't require a mix of uses. It looks at the corridor holistically and envisions a mix of uses along that corridor, not necessarily on a particular site. So if you're proposing purely residential, that can be supportable. If you're proposing something that's commercial, whether it be auto-oriented or not, that would also be supportable, and that's the case in this particular situation. With regards to the future, obviously, planning is fully in support of Link Us, zone-in initiatives, et cetera, that will serve to progress the intensity and support transit and walkability and bikeability along these corridors. These things take time. The market, if there was a market for a mixed-use building that was transit supportive at this location, I'm sure it would be probably more valuable than what's proposed today. That's just not the case. In similar situations in Dublin with Bridge Park, that took a long time to fully develop and change from an auto-oriented shopping center into a mixed-use destination. So that's the vision for the future, but these things, as proposed, can potentially be redeveloped in the medium to long term.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council members for the departments at this time? Councilmember Bankston.
One quick question. I want to clarify. I think one of our speakers with the Civic Association said it doesn't fit the design guidelines. Does it fit the current design guidelines or not?
With the revisions that we requested, our view showed that it did. It was consistent with the Northwest Plan's commercial design guidelines.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council members? Thank you. Well, again, want to say thank you to city staff, Development Commission, certainly the Civic Association for being here tonight. I think this parcel is to say it's sort of awkward how this is constructed here would be not probably appropriate given everything that is happening here between Zone and Link Us. Again, I understand the Civic Association's desire to see more pedestrian-focused development, particularly at any site within their civic association. There's been a number of applications that have come through that I think they have been frustrated with, and I certainly understand where they're coming from. However, to put a blanket stop on development of vacant parcels, considering that we do have approvals for this project at this time, and we do think about, from a long-term perspective, how these areas will redevelop, that potentially the uses that have been requested here won't prohibit that in the future. The marketability of car washes or drive-through restaurants, that's not a zoning question. The idea that we legislate those things via zoning is not what this committee does. It's just not a function of zoning. And I understand that can fall flat to members of the public that say zoning is the reason why X, Y, and Z was created. We all have lots of hopes and desires for change in our community that is less auto-centric, but an individual application for that's before us here tonight doesn't change or do anything on its own with regard to that. So based upon the approvals that we do have in front of us here, I think it's proper for us to move forward with this application, and I move for passage by voice.
Mr. Bangston?
Yes.
Ms. Barosa de Padilla?
No.
Ms. De Alcauer?
No.
Mr. Dorans?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Remy?
Yes.
Mr. White?
No.
President Harden?
Yes, ordinance is passed.
Thank you. Next, we move to the council variances portion of our agenda. We have variance 0689-2024 to grant a variance provisions of section 3332.035, R3 Residential District 3332.27, rear yard, Columbus City Coast, or property located at 385 Clarendon Avenue to allow two separate two-unit dwellings with one lot and reduced development standards in the R3 Residential District. The site consists of two separate two-unit dwellings on one lot. The requested council variance will conform the existing use is necessary for the applicant to obtain financing because the current district only allows one single unit dwelling on one lot as allowable residential use. The proposal has approvals from city staff and the Greater Hilltop Area Commission. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I first move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Alcauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Accepted.
Next, I move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Alcauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Adopted.
Thank you. I finally move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Alcauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 0691-2024 to grant a variance provisions of section 3332.039, R4 Residential District 3312.49, required parking 3332.0A4, area district lot width requirements 3332.15, R4 area district requirements, and 3332.19 fronting, 3332.25 maximum side yards required, and 3332.26 minimum side yard permitted, and 3332.27 rear yard of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 1324 Ida Avenue to allow a single-unit dwelling and a two-unit dwelling on one lot with reduced development standards in the R4 residential district. The site developed with a single-unit dwelling in the R4 residential district. The requested council variance will allow for the expansion of the existing dwelling and the addition of a rear two-unit dwelling. A council variance is required because the R4 district allows up to a four-unit dwelling, but does not allow a single-unit dwelling and two-unit dwelling on the same lot. The proposal has supports from city staff and the 5th by Northwest Area Commission. Do my colleagues have questions or comments? Seeing none, I move to accept the staff report and new evidence as an exhibit.
Second.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Alcauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Accepted.
Thank you. And next, move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council.
Second.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Alcauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Adopted.
Thank you. And finally, move for passage.
Second.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, De Alcauer, Dorans, Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, Council President. That's all we have in tonight's zoning agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Seeing no further business coming before council, is there a motion to adjourn? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alcala, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Zoning Committee is adjourned. We will now hear our remaining